Over in the Premier League, Arsenal cut Liverpool's lead at the top of the Premier League table to 6 points after their comeback win at Brentford yesterday. Let's welcome in Nadim and Noor to talk more about this. But Stevie, Nicol, given that we do have you back and given that Gabriel Jesus is in the form that we're seeing right now, we wanted to ask you, has Arteta found the solution that he needs up top?
Oh, that's a bit of a statement, isn't it?
You're not a Jesus fan, are you?
It's a couple of games. I wouldn't say that. I mean,
it's six goals in his last 4 games in all competitions.
Yeah, I would like to play against him. He's lively. He gets himself around. Yep. You know, you're never quite sure where he is. He's always looking to get in little pockets.
There's going to be a but somewhere here. I can feel the but coming.
But he's scored in how many was it? You said
6 goals in 4.
6 goals in 4 games. Well, that's a great little start because that's what it is. It's a little start. At the end of the day, the most important thing is if he scores, Arsenal win. That's the most important thing. And right now, that's what's happening. And Arsenal 100% deserve to win this game. I mean, you talk about the second half was about as perfect an away performance at a place like Brentford as you could wish for. I mean, no shots on target. You score 2 goals, get yourself 3-1 ahead, and then you shut the game down. Shut it down. Don't give the opposition, don't give the home team a sniff of the goal because you can't afford mistakes. And they're not making mistakes. And they are just sitting on Liverpool's coattails, waiting for Liverpool to slip up.
And that's where we're at.
And that's exactly where we're at.
Nadim, is Stevie right on the Gabriel Jesus situation right now?
Well, I think for Arsenal, what they need to be doing in the second half of the season is having big goals. I think Jesus being in the form now that he's in is great. I think we saw this last season with Havertz around this time of the year where he started to score some big goals for them. But the fact is, this situation is different. They're chasing Liverpool side, who have so many goal scorers everywhere, it feels like, on the pitch, and the main man himself in Mo Salah. But I think Gabriel Jesus is a good player. You know, I saw him when he was playing for Man City, and he was an important part of that squad. When he was playing week in, week out, it didn't necessarily feel like he was the best version of Man City, but he was definitely important for those spells. And maybe this is another example of it. And for Arteta in the second half of the season, with so many games to come up, whether it's going to be the League Cup, it's going to be the FA Cup, the Champions League, the League, I think the fact that he has the ability to rotate will make a big difference because we're used to seeing Havertz play the 9. Well, this time it's Jesus. Maybe Havertz, when he's fully fit, he can come back in. Jesus can go and play in a different position. But just try and have an impact because he is a league winner. He's one of the most experienced players when it comes down to being successful in the Premier League. So, yeah, I know he's been criticised for the amount of goals that he scored, and that goals per minute ratio that he showed just before isn't great. But he knows he can do better. And I think for Arteta, he believes in him as well. And, you know, starting off with that win against Brentford, as Stevie said, that was such a comfortable second half. And you say, well, it's only Brentford. Well, Brentford had the joint best home record in the division before that game. So it's definitely something that needs to be spoken about. And it's good to see him in good form.
Nodding there, Stevie.
Aye, 100%. No question. If they want to win the Premier League, they need a proper goal scorer, and they don't have one. And as good as Jesus is doing right now, by the way, half of those 6 goals you're talking about came in the League Cup. So kill your Jets a little bit.
Well, let's talk about Gabriel Jesus at Manchester City, though, as a goal scorer, Nadim, if we can.
Yeah, so he wasn't ever the main goal scorer. He wasn't second. Sometimes he wasn't even third. You know, looking at the likes of Aguero, Sterling, and 1 or 2 others. But he was definitely somebody who would chip in. I think I remember watching a game where he scored, I think, 4 goals in a game itself, possibly against Leeds a few years ago. So, yeah, I don't think he's necessarily the answer in terms of playing that number 9 position. But then the other side of the debate is, you know, as you look at Manchester City now, you know, there's a lot of critique being given about Erling Haaland because they say all he does is score goals. When he's not scoring goals, what's his value? I think for Arteta, he likes the collective. He likes people that can sort of help the style of play as well as chip in with the goals as well. And in my opinion, I think for Arsenal in the summer, obviously, they might be looking for a number 9 that's going to score a ton of goals. But in reality, other people need to chip in as well. I think it's the collective that makes a big difference because in the years that I've seen in the Premier League, you know, when I think of a 9 scoring tons of goals, I think of the likes of a Harry Kane. But how did Spurs do during those seasons? You know, they had probably 1 or 2 years where they were close to winning a league title. But in reality, most of the time, you had a guy lifting the golden boot and a team that was trying their best to qualify for the Champions League. I think Arteta sees it a bit differently, and it's probably why, you know, he persists with some of these players. And, you know, up until last year, in the last 2 years, if it wasn't for Man City, you know, maybe they would have been league winners with the squad that they have now, which I believe, as the guys do, you know, it is good enough, but maybe something is just one piece away from taking them over the edge.
Remember at one point, Jesus at Manchester City said to the manager, I'm not a centre-forward, I'm a right winger. He said, that's where I play for Brazil, I want to be a right winger, I'm not centre-forward. He changed his tune when Arsenal bought him. He said, no, I'm an out-and-out centre-forward, you know, I can play that role. And when he first went to Arsenal, he did everything. He scored goals, he was closing people down, he was turning, he was looking the all-round centre forward. But it didn't take long, I think it was after an injury, for him to look a very average player. And that's why Arteta left him out the side and played other people in those centre forward roles. Again, he's a confidence player. At the moment, his confidence is high, but I don't guarantee he's going to score goals from now to the end of the season or even play well from now to the end of the season.
One player that Arsenal can be very confident about right now is 17-year-old Ethan Nwaneri. He obviously featured. It was his first Premier League start for Arsenal in this game. One of the highest rated players in it, Nedum. How much can he offer this Arsenal team?
Well, I think he's somebody, as you look at him in the team, doesn't look like he's 17 years of age. I think he's going to be 18 in March. And the way that he was taking the ball under pressure, the way he was able to go past people, the fact that he had some strength to him as well, and he has got a very keen eye for a pass, I think it looks incredible. Because as I've seen him play before, I'll be honest, I didn't know how old he was. I thought maybe he's 19, 20, 21, something like that. But to be that young and to be that effective and to fit into that side, you know, this is currently the second best side in the Premier League. And it looked like he'd been playing for years, in my opinion. And I don't know if necessarily playing on the right wing is going to be his best position, because the talk is maybe he's more like an Odegaard type. Maybe he's an attacking midfielder, number 10. But the fact that they've got somebody like that that's so young that people are saying should be playing, I think it says a lot about his talent. And, you know, this is the next in line after a Saka, and he can see that he can hold his own. The drive is there. Arteta knows him very well, it looks like. Seems like he can trust him in these big games, because to go back to it, playing Brentford away from home, playing Brentford at the G-Tech is a tough game in the Premier League this season. But he trusted him, he put him out there, and I thought he played very, very well. And again, a reminder, he's 18 years old in March. That is crazy, crazy talent.
But let's talk about him on the right-hand side, because does that offer Arteta an option for somebody other than Saka when he needs it?
Well, he played the game very much like Saka would play it. He's a left-footed player playing out in that wide area, and he obviously came in on his left foot and delivered a couple of good crosses. He tried to play a little 1-2 in and around the box. But he also, on 2 occasions, did a step over and went down the outside and went past the defender down the outside and tried to get a right foot crossing. So he's got all the attributes you need. And Nedum's absolutely right. I saw him play for the youth side in the FA Youth Cup a couple of years ago, and he was playing in the number 10 role. He was a creative player. But he can play out wide. He's got all the attributes. I mean, he could have played Martinelli out there and Trossard on the left-hand side, but he trusted Nwaneri, and I think he'll trust him more and more.
So we know that the transfer window is officially open. You can stay up to date with all the latest rumours and news and goings-on over on our Transfer Talk page on the website, ESPN.com. But transfer windows weren't always around back in the day that these guys were playing. There was no such thing as a transfer window. However, 2 of them did still make moves in January, as coincidence would have it. Nedum has also done the same when a transfer window was in place. So we decided to get some of your experiences today on what it is like to move in January. Stevie, starting with you, and you went to Notts County as a player/assistant manager.
I did. Well, I wasn't in the Liverpool side, and I was barely travelling. And I just got a phone call out of the blue from Howard Kendall, who at one stage was looked upon as one of the best managers in European football. Had Everton as one of the best teams in European football, and called me and asked me to go to Notts County and play, but coach as well. And he also said to me, what I'll do with you is, whenever we make any transfers, whenever we do any business, I want you there to learn how it works. So that in the future, you either take over from me or you go somewhere else, and it gets you on the ladder, which is at the time what I thought I wanted to do. So that's why I took up the position as player coach, and as I said, I sat in on all the dealings, all the transfers, all the strange haggling. I mean, I could sit here all night and tell you how weird to sit and listen to 2 grown men trying to one buying a player and one selling a player, and sitting there for 40 minutes, and they probably spoke about the deal for about 20 seconds of the 40 minutes, and I was sitting there right in the middle of the 2 of them. It was David Plate and Howard Kendall. And they were sitting talking about everything other than that. And then one of them would go, what about 50? And then the other one would answer with, yeah, is that a bottle of red you're drinking? And I sat there for 40 minutes.
Why was that?
I sat there for 40 minutes thinking, what's going on here? Why don't you just sort it out? It would take 10 minutes.
So when he became a coach, he did exactly that.
Oh, I absolutely did
yeah,
not.
He learned from that. But Steve, you had been at Liverpool for years before that.
Yeah.
You'd won everything there was to
14
win.
years,
You'd
yeah.
been in this amazing team. Was it a little bit depressing?
No.
No.
Time was up. As I said, I wasn't even travelling at times. So, look, the one thing about Liverpool, when your time's up, you can smell it, you know it, and you go. You don't hang around.
Yeah, nobody wants to be that last person at the party, do they?
No.
Talking about depressing, your move in January, when I heard...
Well, you're talking about Robbo.
I tell you.
I know, I'm a
when I
depressive
heard,
sort of character.
Wait till you hear the story behind Robbo's move in
So I'll try and keep it as brief as
January.
possible. So the previous season, 86, I'd been Arsenal's Player of the Year. I was going to go to the World Cup in 86. Bobby Robson had told me that, and I missed the last 7 or 8 games. So he couldn't take me. Steve Hodge had played against Scotland and scored, so he took Steve Hodge instead. Then George Graham, I worked under Terry Neal, Don Howe and John Cartwright, coaches I really loved. Then George Graham took over. And when I came back for pre-season, the injury was still there. And I played the first 4 games. He made me vice-captain. I played the first 4 games, didn't play particularly well, but was still picked for England. Went away with England to play against Sweden and was sub. Fortunately, and I was so fortunate, I didn't get on because the groin was really causing me a problem. Went back to George Graham and said, I need something doing. This isn't right. And he said to me, looks as though you've put England before Arsenal. At which I said, last year I pulled out 4 England squads, so I was fit for Arsenal. So when you weren't here, so don't talk to me about that. It was then proved I needed a double hernia. Went and had the operation. And while I was in hospital, waiting to come out and get myself fit, I saw in the back of the Sunday Mail, Everton, who were then, who you were talking about, top of the league, best team in the made a bid for me. And then the next day it was West Ham have made a bid. So I thought, well, what's going on here?
You learned that in the paper?
I learned that in the paper while I was in hospital. So I come out and I'll go to George Graham and he said, well, I don't know what it's all about. Then on New Year's Eve, and I'd had 2 weeks of training and I'm just about to come be fit again. George Graham phones me on New Year's Eve and says, I've had a phone call off John Lyle. He's willing to pay this amount of money for you. I think it's a good deal for us and it's a good deal for you. Why don't you go and have a chat with him?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So I went and met him, didn't sign, went back to see George Graham and said, what about Everton? Because he said, well, you can't go there because they're top of the table. So I said, well, I'd like to go to Everton. He said, you can't go there. So I said, OK. Listened to what he had to say, spoke to my dad and he went, you can't play for him. So I went to West Ham. And I went on, I think, January the 3rd or 4th.
How did you feel?
Well, it was a major shock because at the time, as I say, I was Arsenal's Player of the Year. I was in the England squad and suddenly this new manager comes in and we have a row and his first thing that he wanted to do was, OK, get rid of him. And again, it was after an injury. So I wasn't too pleased. So when we were talking the other day about, do you look at your old team's results and think, let's hope they do well? At the time, the worst thing that ever happened to me was, and I think you might have been playing, Mickey Thomas runs through and makes Arsenal win the title against Liverpool. That was the worst thing that could have happened.
Yeah, the Neil Maupay of the 80s back then. Stewart, Robson, checking it out on the back page of the magazine. Well, seeing as though we're on a depressing theme and January is usually a dreary month,
Oh, we've gone to the right place,
we've saved the best for last. Let us take you back to January 2012.
Oh, where do I begin? So let me start off by saying this, okay? So I think things differently now, but at the time, you know, I'd come from Man City's academy, raised in Manchester, Man City supporter. So playing for City was my dream. I didn't know anything else, but apart from that, you know, I was so happy to be playing. I'd played under Kevin Keegan, Stuart Pearce, Roberto Mancini, Sven-Göran Eriksson. And then all of a sudden, here comes Roberto Mancini, and I'm out. I'm so out. I'm so irrelevant. I'm training with the under-18s. And for other people in the team, you know, you're looking at the likes of Adebayor, Wayne Bridges and so on. You know, this was part of their journey. They just happened to be there and they were prepared to go anywhere else. But for me, I didn't want to leave. I kept thinking, I'll be able to force this manager to play me. I'll train as hard as I can, as hard as I can, as hard as I can. Obviously, that got a bit tricky when all of a sudden I was training at 3 and the first team were training at 10, so he couldn't really see me anymore. But still, I thought, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And then the first window came in August, and it was QPR that were in for me. But I thought, this doesn't feel right. It's not the right place to go. You know, I wanted to try and force my way into the team, so I didn't leave in that first window. And then from August through to December, I played in 3 League Cup games, and I played in 1 league game for City that season, just 1. And it just so happened to be the one before I was sold. But in terms of being sold again, I thought, I'll prove him wrong. And then one day I got a call saying, well, the club have accepted a bid from Queen's Park Rangers. And I was like, okay, so what does that mean? And they say, you need to get on the train and go right down to London now. And all of a sudden my world is like changing completely. It was never my intention to leave. But now not only am I leaving, at this point, I'm like a proper die-hard northerner as well. I hated the South. I thought there's no way I want to go down to London. No way I want to do that. Went down, did the negotiations. 24 hours later, I'm training at QPR's training ground, which is one of the oldest, dustiest training grounds ever at the time. They've changed it now, thankfully. But all of a sudden, yeah, I'm a QPR player. Didn't know any of the players, didn't know anything about travelling around London. And all the while, what really made it a little bit tricky for me was, again, say I didn't want to leave, but just before I left, I was told by an agent that Everton were interested as well. But the only way that move would happen, because it was going to be a potential for a loan with a chance of a permanent. And somehow I don't know whether that was going to be true or not, but they said to get it done, you have to go to one of the directors at City and say you would like to do this. And for me, again, at the time, because I played 200 odd games for QPR, you have some great memories there. But at the time, I didn't want to go south. So I went into the director and said, is this true? Because if it's true, I'd like to do that. He looked me in the eye and said, no, it's not true. And you've got to go to QPR. As the years went on, I found out it was true. And he lied to my face, but they wanted to get me off the books. And as a consequence, I went down there. They wiped their hands of me. And then I'll be honest, for as much as I'm a City supporter, it was very hard to support City under Mancini, because I know he was the guy that changed my life, and then changed it in a way whereby there was real resentment, because I felt I was good enough to be there, but instead he'd taken me away from my home.
Oh, Nathan.
That's exactly what we're talking about. When you usually leave a club for a reason.
Right.
Stevie left it because he knew it was time, but he didn't dislike the club because they hadn't treated him badly. Yep. Nedum thinks the club have treated him badly, or Mancini has treated him badly, and he's absolutely right. And I felt that George Graham had treated me badly. That's why, for the next year, 2 years, you don't want that team to keep winning.
It feels weird to support them. But, Nathan, and then the fact that, obviously, the Everton thing you didn't know at the time, you weren't told the truth there. And I know, obviously, you were Man City through and through. Was there ever a way you could have kicked up a fuss and refused that move to QPR?
Yeah, I absolutely could have done, but this is the thing that makes it even more interesting. The last manager before Roberto Mancini took over at Man City was Mark Hughes, and he was one of my favourite managers, and I played in his last game before he lost his job. And guess who was the manager at QPR in the second half of that season? It was Mark Hughes. So it was a familiar face that was saying, come down here, and this is what I have planned for you. This is somebody who I trusted, someone who I played some of my best football under. So that was the draw. And also listening to people around me who were telling me about this, because I'd only played 3-4 games that season. I'd been fit for the first half of the season, was barely playing. And somebody reminded me, and this is a great thing which I say to people, like, you never know how long your career is going to last, so you can never afford to waste the season. So I was like, well, I have to do this. This is the right thing to do from a career perspective. From the inner fan within me and stuff like that, I absolutely did not want to do it. But again, it was the right decision. I've ended up playing, as I say, over 200 games for them. And like, it's a career, even though there were times when we got relegated, we played in the Championship, which was never something I'd done prior to that point. The fact is, you ended up playing years of this sport, which, so many people would give anything to be able to do. But yeah, I couldn't turn it down. If I was in a stronger position, maybe I could have. But the other option was I either go to QPR or I sit and I watch the first team play every Saturday and have no part to do with it. And for me, that wasn't going to be sustainable.
When did the resentment go away, Nadim? I'm not going to ask Robbo because we know it still hasn't.
Do you know, for me, the irony behind it is, like, for the game in 2012 where Gabriel scores the goal, it's one of the most iconic games in Premier League history and so on. A lot of people who I know who are City fans, they think that I was celebrating as that goal went in. But for me, the biggest thing was making sure that I stayed in the league that day. And I was so happy for my teammates and so happy for my friends who were playing for Man City. So happy for some of the staff who had been at City for so many years. We'd seen so many lows, like when we didn't score a goal at home for 4 months, 2 years earlier. But in terms of Mancini, like, again, I could meet him now and maybe things are all right, but I resented him so much. And I always try and make this point, which is a little bit toxic. If you want to know how good a manager he was, look at the 15 minutes before they scored their second and third goals, because he's on the sideline telling every Man City player how bad they are. Those were his go-to tactics in the biggest moments when his back was against the wall. So yeah, there was a sense of resentment towards that. And then obviously them losing in the FA Cup final to Wigan, I think possibly the year later, that was tough. That was really, really tough, because I didn't want them to lose, because these are my friends. You're talking about Joe Hart's, Michael Richards, Joleon Lescott's, to name but a few. James Milner's, for example. But the fact is, as soon as he left, it felt more normal. And then, to be honest, as soon as I left the country in 2018, that's when it started to feel more like it did when I was a child. And to this day now, this feels a lot more like from before I was playing as well.
Yeah, definitely not let that one go on, Mancini. I will, of course, ask you. I was kidding. When did the resentment go away, Robbo?
When George Graham left. Yeah, because, as I say, at the time, everything was going well at Arsenal for me. You know, and as I said, Player of the Year. I was just got into the England squad as a young 20. I was 23, but I'd been in England squads before. But this was the one, you know, where it was going to all take off. And I still don't, to this day, know why he did that. And he even went on a podcast. And the other thing he did, George Graham, which he said I couldn't sign the papers at West Ham until 6 o'clock at night. We didn't know why that was. The reason was he could get to the newspapers and put his story out in all the newspapers, because the Arsenal fans went mad when I was sold. And he put out, his words were, I tried everything to keep him. I offered him the best contract any Arsenal player has been offered.
Wow.
In history. These are the things he said at the time, and I just couldn't keep him. He wanted to go to West Ham, his boyhood club, which it wasn't my boyhood club at all. So when I had the chance, when the papers came back to me to answer back, too late.
Hello and welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. Kay Murray, Stewart, Robson here in the studio, and Stevie Nicol is back with us. Might hear a little bit of coughing throughout the show, but he's definitely doing well and says that he's fighting fit. We think he can make it through a show at least. Anyway, we've got La Liga action back tomorrow as Real Madrid will play that make-up game at Mestalla against Valencia. Remember that Barca's drop-off before the winter break has helped Real Madrid to climb above them in the table. 2 months ago, we might not have anticipated they would be here at this stage of the season, given how things had been playing out in La Liga. So let's welcome in Alex KIrkland right now from Madrid to talk more about it. They've got to be happy with where they are right now, Alex, Real Madrid. They probably didn't expect this right now.
Yeah, certainly in a much better place than they were, Kay. As you say, when you look at where they were misfiring really as a team earlier in the season. Key players weren't performing as well. There were doubts about how Mbappe was fitting into the team. There were doubts about the form of players like Jude Bellingham. By contrast, like you say, Barcelona were absolutely flying at the start of the season. All that has changed now. Right now, Madrid in a place where if they win this game away at Valencia, of course, it's a big if, but they can go top of the table. They're a team, it feels like there's a big upside still. There's room for improvement still in this team to get better. They're on an upward curve, both collectively and individually. Mbappe has been scoring more and more goals, looking more and more like he fits into this Real Madrid team. There are one or two question marks, one or two issues, especially in defence, but overall, the mood is good, and you can feel it around the place. You can hear it when you hear Carlo Ancelotti talking. He did his press conference today. He feels like this team has kind of found itself, has found its identity, has overcome some of the problems they had earlier in the season. And they're where they want to be, which is right there or thereabouts at the top of the table. They've got some trophies in the bag already. Of course, the Intercontinental Cup was the most recent one. Before that, the Super Cup. They've got the Spanish Super Cup coming up as well. So, yeah, it's where they want to be, which is there at the top of the table, fighting for trophies. And the fact that, of course, that Barcelona are really in crisis, that always helps from a Real Madrid point of view as well.
Carlo Ancelotti had said that the problem's over now. Mbappe's adapted. Obviously, you were a bit dismissive of that at the time, Stevie. Yeah. But if he can continue what we were seeing before the break, it's only going to be a good thing for Madrid.
Oh, big time. If Mbappe on his own gets back to his very best, regardless of how Real Madrid as a team are playing, he's going to end up getting goals and creating stuff just because of his own talent. So, listen, if they ever as a unit click, then this team is absolutely going to destroy anybody that's put in front of them. And as I said, the biggest thing for Mbappe is if he just looks after himself right now and gets back to what he does best and let Ancelotti take care of what's going on behind him, then no question, Real Madrid will be a force to be reckoned with. And this guy will get back to the Mbappe that we know he can be. And he's done it for the last couple of games, but I think that's a little bit too early, as I said before, to start saying, oh, Mbappe's back.
Just before we do move on to the next topic, Stuart, what did you think of Ancelotti saying that the talk about him and his adaptation is over now and he's already integrated into the team?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's trying to bluff one or two people. I think he is doing better. There was a great goal that he scored when Modric came in field and played a ball down the side and he timed his run, he came short and spun in behind. The one thing I would say about Mbappe, he's a brilliant talent, But when I heard Pochettino talk about it, he said he still needed to learn how to find space. And that's about one of the world's best players. Pochettino was saying that when he was at PSG.
OK, well, we'll see how it all plays out in this second half of the season. One of the big storylines in Madrid right now, though, Alex, that we'd like you to tell us more about is this reported offer for Trent Alexander-Arnold. No formal fee or anything mentioned, but can you tell us more on where we are with this?
Yeah, well, talking about room for improvement, one clear position is the right-back position that needs improving in this Real Madrid squad because Dani Carvajal's out for the season. Lucas Vázquez does his best, but isn't quite good enough to be playing there every week. The player that Real Madrid would want to bring in at right-back is Trent Alexander-Arnold. As you say, they wanted to bring him on a free transfer in the summer. The Carvajal injury means they would love to bring him in 6 months earlier in January. Now, as you say, they made that initial approach to Liverpool, which was quickly rejected. Liverpool, of course, chasing the Premier League title, maybe the Champions League as well, don't want to let one of their best players go. Of course they don't. And I've got to say, I find it unlikely because, yes, there's talk of could there be some sort of compromise where Real Madrid might stretch to, paying 15, 20, 25 million euros to Liverpool to bring Trent in now. I find it hard to conceive that there's a figure that Real Madrid will be willing to pay that would be enough to convince Liverpool to accept, and wouldn't, otherwise I think Liverpool just think, well, no, let's keep one of our best players at this crucial time of the season until the end of the season, hope to convince him to stay. If he ends up going, fine. But I find it difficult. I think there's a number there that would be acceptable to both parties. But nonetheless, I think Real Madrid are going to still keep pushing. I don't think it's the last we've heard of this month because, like I say, this is a player they want to bring in, they wanted anyway. They'd like to bring him in now because they know that right back is the issue in these squads. But I'd be surprised. If it happens, I'd be surprised. But that's what they would like to happen because, like I say, Carvajal's missing. And if you could bring in a player of the calibre of Trent Alexander-Arnold into this team, in this position at this stage in the season, well, fantastic. But whether that can be done is another question.
And of course, they're only months away from being able to get him on a free. We wondered why you've been away. Maybe it wasn't the cough. Maybe you've been upset about this whole situation. What have you made of it all, Stevie?
I'm not surprised. I think 100% he'll be going to Real Madrid in the summer. And it makes absolutely no sense for Liverpool to let him go for 15 or 20 million. I mean, winning the Premier League and the Champions League is going to be worth way more than 15 or 20 million to Liverpool if they can do that. So why are they going to let a guy who's important in their attempt to do, or certainly win those two trophies? So it makes no sense. Unless it's a stupid offer like 60 million or something where it's like, it's just a no-brainer. You don't do it. It's not worth it to Liverpool, but he'll be gone. And surprise, surprise, Real Madrid.
Well, it feels unanimous that many former Liverpool players are saying that if Real Madrid come calling, of course he's going to be going at the end of the season, Trent Alexander-Arnold. What does that do for Arne Slot, though, now? Like, what type of distraction does it pose? Does he change the way he plays with his team, knowing he may not have Trent at the end of the season?
No. Alexander-Arnold is a player that he knows exactly what he's going to get from him. He doesn't worry too much about the defensive side of the game. I think that's fairly key. But he's got a great understanding with Mo Salah down the right-hand side. And Arne Slot's got to do what's right for Liverpool now until the end of the season, so they win something. Then at the end of the season, if he goes, then he can change one or two things. Then he can think about who he's going to bring in. I mean, then I'm sure Liverpool are already looking at their next right-back because Alexander-Arnold, I think we all feel he's going to go to Real Madrid. But at the moment, he's not going to change anything that he's doing. He's going to keep Alexander-Arnold in the team. Unless his attitude changes, which I don't think it will because he's been excellent this season, everything will stay the same.
Does it offer any...
You shouldn't forget, they've probably got the right back already. Conor Bradley.
Yes.
You know,
so it doesn't offer any distraction whatsoever in the title race for Liverpool?
No, I think if there was going to be a distraction, we would have seen it already. Because I think Trent knows he's going, and I think Arne Slot's pretty sure he'll be going as well. So if there was ever going to be any sort of problem in the camp, we would have seen it. But quite clearly, the way they're playing, the way Trent's playing, the way that Arne Slot's handling everything, it's not a distraction.
And there was also talk right
Not
at the beginning of the season when we were doing the pre-season games, and because Alexander-Arnold didn't have a great season last year, and Conor Bradley came in and did really well. There was talk that Conor Bradley could be the starting right back right at the beginning of the season because he was playing so well. He was a better 1v1 defender. He had a little bit more pace on his recovery than Alexander-Arnold. So I don't think they even have to look too far for the next right back, as Stevie said.
So win-win for everybody when it comes to Real Madrid and Liverpool.
No, it's not. It's not a win for Liverpool.
Go on then, why isn't it a win?
Well, because they're losing Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Not so great at Barcelona right now in terms of the Dani Olmo situation. Obviously, you guys all know what's been going on. Sport have gone with the headline scandal. saying Barcelona didn't register him in time. With the situation regarding the registration of Dani Olmo still not being resolved, are we about to see something change, Alex? Are there any reports that this could be solved? What are we looking at right now?
As of today, Kay, Barcelona have been briefing to the media that they are confident, they are optimistic about getting Dani Olmo registered tomorrow, Friday. Now, how they plan to do that, we don't know, because as far as we can see, the rules, at least from the outside, are pretty clear. But they are saying they're optimistic, and let's see. Barca still haven't said anything officially about this on the record. No one's come out and spoken from Barcelona's side. The last thing we heard officially from La Liga was the statement on December the 31st saying that Barcelona hadn't presented them with any new evidence to be able to register Dani Olmo. And as far as we know, nothing has changed. Now, Barca, again, have been briefing to the media that they've got this deal in place to bring in some more money, which is from the sale of some of the VIP boxes that are still under construction Camp Nou, and that would enable them to get financially in a position to be able to register Dani Olmo. Barca are saying, at least off the record, that they presented the league with this information, but they just needed to sort of give them all the details in terms of the numbers and the how and the when and all of that paperwork. And then they are briefing, it might be signed off. Now, La Liga aren't confirming any of that at the moment. Like I say, all we know from La Liga side is that yesterday, on the 1st of January, Dani Olmo was no longer registered as a Barcelona player. And so here we are. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Of course, Hansi Flick's going to be speaking tomorrow in his pre-match press conference for Barca ahead of their Copa del Rey game on Saturday. So he'll be facing questions about this as well Friday lunchtime here in Spain if it's not resolved by then. It's a quite extraordinary saga, and we've almost become sort of desensitized to these things with Barca and the finances, but this really does feel like another level when you're talking about their star signing just 6 months ago, potentially not being able to play. In terms of Dani Olmo himself, think about how he's feeling about this as well. He's been keeping a low profile. He's been training. He and his people have been briefing, again, that he's not interested in leaving Barcelona because there is a clause in his contract that was put in for precisely this kind of eventuality that, if he weren't registered, he would be able to exercise and leave. They are saying that he won't do that and that he would like to stay. But if that means staying and not playing for 6 months, we don't know. So let's see.
Well, you have just answered the next question for me on the Dani Olmo side of things. What to do if you're the player, if you're not registered and you know that you're not going to be playing for this whole what's left of the season? What would you do, Robbo, if you were him?
Your career is short. If you're, fully fit, if you get injuries, you're going to miss games. But if you're fully fit and you're going to miss 6 months of football, you can't be happy with that. How do you know? Where do you play? Do you play? How do you keep yourself in shape? How do you keep yourself fit? How do you keep yourself match fit? So that when you come back in 6 months' time, if they can register him, and then is he going to be the same player he was? I'm sure he would be, but it might take him a little while. Does he go for nothing? Does he go on a free transfer so he could negotiate somewhere else a massive contract? That's the next question. And if that was the case, he might think it's time that I do go, because Barcelona haven't shown me enough sort of respect that they get me signed and ready, registered for this second half of the season.
What would you do, Steve? Because it's such a weird situation. Had the injury not happened to Christensen, he might not have even been playing anyway.
It really depends on the character of the individual. And it sounds like Dani Olmo is a good guy. He's a loyal guy, and he's prepared to do the 6 months. Now, there are other players who I'm sure Rob was playing with a few who are pretty much mercenaries, and it's a lot about them. And if it's not about them, they're more than happy just to.
But if the club have made a mess of it, they haven't shown you great loyalty, have they? Barcelona, they've made a real mess of this situation, and you've been the star signing, and you're not registered, so they're not treating you particularly well.
Would you have been loyal, Stevie? Given his history at Barcelona as well.
I'm a bit of a softie. I would probably have seen it out. I mean, I'm assuming he'll get paid. He'll still get paid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would probably do the 6 months. But as I said, I know plenty of players that would have said, "Not my fault. See you later. I'll take the dough."
It feels, Alex, as though that is the difference here, regardless of what's going to happen here, that Dani Olmo has wanted so badly to get back to Barcelona that it would feel that maybe he would just be happy. Well, not happy, but okay to sit those 6 months out.
Yeah, everything we hear tells us that he loves the club and this is where he wants to be. But two further complications, Kay, it's worth mentioning very quickly. One, our understanding is he can't go on loan because to go on loan, the rules state here in Spain, you have to be registered with the club first, and he currently is not registered with Barcelona, so they couldn't loan him out. And secondly, the rules also state that to play for Spain, To play for the national team, you have to be registered with a club. And right now he isn't. So it's not just his club career that's being affected by this potentially for 6 months. It's his international career as well. So yeah, a big, big decision if he were to decide to stick it out.
If you stick it out, what are you doing? Are you just continuing to train every day with your teammates to keep your fitness up?
Yes, the club would have his own. He'd probably nowadays employ his own fitness coach as well to go along with what the players are doing. But you need somehow to play matches. They'll probably play a lot of practice matches to get him involved. But yes, it's not an ideal situation. If you're a fully fit player and you're only just training 6 months in, how many times do you hear players, ex-players, players say, "I need 3 or 4 games to get myself match fit"? Well, he's going to be out for 6 months. The longer you're out, the more it takes you to get back fit again. It's not an ideal situation for any sort of player.
Because you can't really recreate a match and that sharpness that you need as a player.
Well, you don't. Well, here's the good thing. He doesn't need to be sharp because he's not playing. So he can wait till next pre-season and get himself 100% fit. I mean, you just go in, you train, you work hard. He looks like one of those guys again, a bit like me. I went in every day and I worked hard every single day. And I was at a certain level. I wouldn't have been at the level without the games. But he will get through 6 months, and as I said, when pre-season starts and he starts playing games, he'll get back to normal. So it doesn't need to be sharp because he's not playing.
I wonder if his diet as a footballer was like yours back in the day, Steve.
I wouldn't think so.
I would suspect no. Anyway, thank you, Alex, so much for being with us. We'll be speaking to you again this weekend.